Imagine this scene. It's Paris, 1895. Two brothers, the Lumiere brothers, who were pioneers in photography, created what was probably the most dramatic and magical moment in film history. What they did was to show a moving picture without sound of a train chasing towards the camera in front of a live audience. And the audience, most of them actually freaked out. People screamed in terror, some people hid under their seats, and some even made the leap from their seats to avoid what they thought was a train coming towards them. Now, this sounds somewhat insane from our modern perspective and our modern understanding of film. But I can assure you of one thing. The feelings were real. The fear, the terror, the increased heartbeats, the sweaty palms, the adrenaline shakes, all of that was completely real. But the feelings were based in a very simple misunderstanding and a very basic psychological illusion. Now, if you're watching this quick video, you're probably looking to make some sort of change, and you may be wondering if you and I might be a good fit. Perhaps, as many of my clients, you struggle with some sort of fear, whether it might be a specific fear like public speaking or flying or panic attacks or PTSD symptoms or stuttering, or perhaps your anger is getting the best of you and leaving the worst of you for the people you care about the most, whether that might be your spouse or your kids. Or perhaps you have a really nice life, but you're unable to really enjoy it due to being lost in a fog of depressive thoughts or compulsive thinking. After about 19 years of seeing clients full-time, studying neurolinguistic programming, various schools of hypnosis, meditation, and studying the work of a lot of exceptional agents of change, such as Albert Ellis, Dr. John Sarno, William Glasser's choice theory, the 3 principles of Sydney Banks, and the developmental psychology of Robert Kegan, I've landed at a conclusion that nothing much has happened since 1895. Sure, the technology has evolved massively, but almost all the types of issues, what we label psychological issues that people come in with, is really the result of falling for some very simple misunderstandings and just a handful of psychological illusions. The Buddha actually discovered this about 2,500 years ago, when he realized that most of our suffering in life is due to us not being able to see thoughts as they arise in consciousness. This is what happened with the folks back in 1895. They were unable to see thoughts as thoughts in the moment. And as a result, they suffered. So the kind of change work that I do is not therapy. I completely reject the idea of mental illness or people as broken. It's more a process, a conversation, where I guide people through various thought experiments to see through various psychological illusions and misunderstandings as it relates to their particular issue. There are often specific psychological illusions at play for specific symptoms. I'll give you one example. If you look at trauma, for something to be encoded as a trauma, you really need to have the perception at the time of inescapability. You need that perception of inescapability to be traumatized. If that perception is no longer there, then the basis for continuing to be traumatized by some memory construct will also fall away. A 1994 scientific research study published in the New England Journal of Medicine showed that 2/3 of people without pain, without back pain, had pretty severe so-called structural abnormalities in the back. That's a pretty interesting finding. but it has very little implications for how people actually go about working with pain. I've had a lot of experience seeing people for allergies, asthma, various skin disorders, chronic back pain. A lot of people out there are struggling a lot with these types of symptoms. And one big reason why they struggle is because we really haven't recovered since the days of René Descartes, when we used language to separate the mind and the body. Descartes created the so-called mind-body split, where the church got the mind and the men of science got the body. And since then, we've been living as if it's true. We've been living as if that fiction, that mind-body split, is actually real and not something that we've made up. The truth is that the types of symptoms that I just mentioned have way more to do with what's happening in your mind and in your emotional life than it has to do with what's going on in terms of pathology or structural abnormalities. I'll make this claim, and that is that most symptoms that people have are really a trick of the mind. It's really them falling for a psychophysiological illusion where the mind is attempting to protect the person from what the person unconsciously thinks would be unbearable or unacceptable emotions. And as a tactic, the brain or the unconscious mind creates some sort of pain. And the fact that most people don't know this has resulted in a medical catastrophe of millions of people struggling with these types of issues without any relief. So just like with the movie example from 1895, the feelings are real. The pain is real. I'm not saying that the pain or the symptoms or the allergy, for example, isn't real. But what I am saying is that way more often than not, it's based upon a simple misunderstanding and a psychophysiological illusion. And just like with the movie audience, it would make very little sense to attempt to teach them a technique to manage their state or to talk about their childhood or anything like that. The way you would help them would be to help them to see through the misunderstanding, to actually realize the nature of film. So that is the basis of the work that I do. The work I do, at this point, I've seen clients from all over Europe. I've seen clients in the United States. I've seen clients from Australia, many other countries. So there are two options, really. You can fly in here, and a lot of the work that I do is also possible to do on Skype. So if this information resonates with you, I'd like you to check out the client testimonials, the audio and video interviews that you can find on the page. And if this resonates with you, then feel free to get in touch.